This is what I usually try to do with all my images. I'm trying to inspire people to go outside, to rescue animals, to plant trees, to see all these amazing places, because then they may protect all these places as I do.
Shutter Stories, a Canon podcast.
Hi, I'm Ilvy Njiokiktjien, I'm a Canon Ambassador, and welcome to the latest episode of Shutter Stories, a Canon podcast. Documenting the changes that occur in our oceans, as well as our rainforest and dwindling habitats, is a daunting and necessary task. Photography and videography play a key role in this. I'm joined by two extremely impressive guests this week, who also happen to be fellow Canon ambassadors, and they often work together in their conservation mission, Marc Lehmann and Nicolai Deutsch. Robert is a man of many trades. He describes himself as a marine biologist and scientific diver, photographer and filmmaker, and conservationist and adventurer. He has been photographing the natural world for 16 years. Nicolai Deutsch, a filmmaker and cameraman, has worked on some game-changing projects, including the Netflix documentary Seaspiracy. Robert and Nico, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I'm really excited for this episode because I love the specific field you're in. It has always been one of my big interests. Robert, let's start with you. I know you are a trained marine biologist, but then you became a photographer and filmmaker too. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I lived through all these amazing adventures all over the world. I visited 130 countries within the last 20 years. Yeah, always experiencing these amazing adventures, and everyone said, show me an image, show me a video, and I said, well, I don't have a camera, I just tell you the stuff I experienced. And then I started to use a camera, and I bought my first Canon camera in 2006-ish, and my first semi-professional camera in 2007. It was the Canon 7D. And then I started to take pictures of the things I saw, and then everything came together. I used my camera every single day. And if you use your camera every single day and you visit all these amazing places and you have all these amazing experiences, and somehow I became better and better and better from day to day. I bought an underwater housing, I became an underwater cameraman, and I started to fly drones, and now I basically just miss out the space. Space is missing.
Everything is possible. So, Nico, your route into the industry was the opposite of this, I would say, right? You started as a trained filmmaker, and then you did all the travels.
Yeah, well, actually, it's quite the opposite. I started even before getting into filmmaking or studying it. So as a kid, I already picked up a camera, filmed holiday videos and that kind of stuff, and it really interested me. And then in school I had photography class, still developing film in the darkroom, and that really fascinated me. And then I decided, hey, this is really something I want to do professionally, and that's basically my route into how I become a filmmaker.
And how did you then become kind of engaged into the whole natural world and the working underwater?
I think the main part was that I started filming actually already quite early underwater, like as a hobby. And this was already the connection to the underwater world. I did my open water really early with 10 years. So I've been diving now actually for 20 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's very young to start.
Yeah, I picked up the first underwater camera, then 2 years later, wanted to continue get more professional in the underwater filmmaking world. And I think that's how it came together, because I never studied marine biology or anything like that, which is actually, you could ask Robert, I do miss a few key facts about some animals, which is always good to have him, as a backup. And that's, I guess, the story how I got where I am right now.
So how did you two meet?
So I've been working with Canon for quite a few years, and I've been doing workshops and getting really into the video part for Canon. And I got an email from Canon Germany about a guy who is interested in purchasing a C200 underwater housing. And at that time, I had this housing myself. I think I actually was one of the first ones to get that one, because the moment the camera came out, I was like, I need this camera for diving. And my first thought was, yeah, like, wow, whatever, like all of these people that want to have these things. And at that time, I didn't know Robert. And then we were on the phone, and he was like, yeah, asking me a few questions. And I think I sent him through a video that I did in the Bahamas with the C200.
And I was blown away. This video is so amazing. It was like, how is this guy able to do this shot?
And yeah, he then was interested, and it kind of was, I think at that time you said, oh yeah, we should keep in contact or something. I don't remember exactly how it continued, but
yeah, because I started to work for TV, and I needed a cameraman who is a very skilled one, and that's why I asked you, are you able to fly a drone? Are you shooting topside? Are you shooting underwater? And you ticked all the boxes, and I said, I need your number for sure, and may I call you once I get a job? I never thought about it, that we approached the same topic from completely different angles.
Yeah, you really do. You're like the opposites, but then it comes together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I started my diving profession like 20 years ago. I first became a scientific diver and a very, very good diver with thousands of dives. And then I started to pick up my camera. And I always thought it's the better way if you are a professional diver first, and then you start to fiddle around with your camera. Because the cameramen I met, who were very good topside cameramans, because there's loads of good topside cameramans, and they started to go underwater, they're usually very bad because they are bad divers, they're beginners, and they fiddle around with their dive equipment, they're not very stable underwater. But if it's the other way around, you don't have to deal with the diving, you can focus on the camera. That's why Nico and me, we are a perfect team if we work together.
I don't know, it seems the way you work and what I've seen from your works, it looks like a kind of yin-yang situation with you two.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think in general, I do regret a little bit going that route. I would recommend people way more to take the route Robert took, because it's so much easier to learn afterwards the filming part than study the whole underwater world, marine life, everything. For me, I feel like that's rather the way to go.
But the good thing is you are putting a lot of effort in becoming a better diver. So you are investing a lot of time and a lot of training in your skills to become a better diver. And this is actually my recommendation for everyone outside. If you want to become better, it doesn't matter if it's diving or photography or filming, invest in your skills, invest in training, use your skills and use your camera and use your dive equipment every single day as much as you can, and then you automatically become a pro, basically.
That's the thing. You pick up the camera and you pick it up every day and you practice, and by making all kinds of different mistakes, you find a way how to make them better. That's kind of...
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. And I've done millions of mistakes in the past, and now I'm quite okay in terms of photography, yeah? And you learn through your mistakes. And I would like to find another word for mistakes, because I don't think they are mistakes. I think they are like learning opportunities.
Yeah. Learning experiences.
Learning experiences, exactly. Yeah.
Sounds much better that
Yeah.
way also.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, I made a learning experience.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful like this.
Okay, the next time I mess up something at a shoot with Robert, I'll just say, hey, I had a learning experience right now.
Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. I shot myself in the knee. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
So I think the one we now kind of spoke about how you got here through different routes into this industry. But I think the one thing that really is totally the same with you two is that you love adventure. Could you both maybe describe why adventure draws you in that much? What is it about adventure that makes your heart beat faster? And also tell me about the first adventure you remember going on that was super amazing.
This is a very good question, because I'm always asked, what is your most amazing adventure? And I say, well, I basically have one every single week, and there were hundreds basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. If you travel that much as you guys do, I can imagine that's the way.
But I mean, as a child, I grew up in the DDR in Eastern Germany, so we were not allowed to travel. And once this opened up, I received all these amazing books about sharks and jungle and deserts and stuff like that. So I really became interested in the world, and I always wanted to see it myself. And the sea, the sharks, whales, orcas and jungle always fascinated me the most. And I always wanted to feel it, to smell it, to touch it, to experience the whole story. And in the beginning it was all about traveling, but during these travels I realized there's more to the whole story. I got to know all these amazing researchers doing research on animals or the jungle itself or rescuing whales. Or I met documentary filmmakers and that's why I basically fell in love with the whole story and producing stories and showing people what is going on. And that's why I press the button almost every single day, the record button or the photography button.
It's amazing how your childhood of being in the DDR actually made you want to go to different places.
You want to go outside, you want to travel. Once you see all these amazing images in books, because there was no internet or no YouTube, no nothing. I've seen it all in the books and I was like, oh, this is so fascinating. I need to see a blue shark for myself. I need to see an orca. I need to be on a boat. I had the urge in myself. I needed to breathe sea air, you know? This is something you can't really describe. It's just a thing which really, it's like a magnet. And whenever I'm underwater or on the sea, this is where I feel home. I don't feel at home in my office or in front of a computer screen. I feel at home when I'm freediving in the open blue. This is my happy place.
That's beautiful. I also truly think that a lot of us, we kind of lose touch with nature so quickly in the world we live in, just the way it is now. So I can totally understand you feel very much alive doing the job you do.
And this is what I usually try to do with all my images. I'm trying to inspire people to go outside, to rescue animals, to plant trees, to see all these amazing places, because then they may protect all these places as I do.
I think you are managing, because I saw a video of you presenting your book. And if you look at the comment sections on YouTube, and you probably did, you see you inspire a lot of people. So many people were like, okay, I need to do better. I want to change this in my life and this in my life. And so, yeah, I think it's working, Robert.
Yeah, I try and I receive a lot of messages. Yes, it seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So where did the adventure start, Nico? Like how?
Again, it's the opposite. First of all, I'm just a few years younger than Robert.
Always good to mention.
Growing up also in West Germany. And my parents, they have been huge travelers, and they basically took me from a very early age with their custom built camper within Europe, but also traveling backpacking through Southeast Asia as a kid. So I really got this traveling gene put into my hands straight away as a kid, so it continued. So the moment I got older and we didn't go on trips anymore, I wanted to continue, keep exploring, and that really fascinated me, discovering new places. And again, I feel like a bit the opposite, but it just kept on going. Like, I want to go to basically every place there is that I could go to. That's what it feels like. And especially with the underwater world, it's like fascinating me so much, like to go into deeper divings and knowing, hey, in this place there have been only a handful of people, is really something that fascinates me.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially the places where hardly any people have gone, or that must be extremely exciting, I would say.
It is super exciting, and if you are allowed to take your camera with you, or if it's on an assignment to go to exactly these places, this feels for me like a dream job. And then you bring back the recordings and the images, and people say, oh my God, where is that? Where is this? What does it? Where? How can I go? And then you say, yeah, just 3 hours into a cave, and then you have like 5 minutes for this image, and then it's 3 hours back. And you have to study diving for 20 years, and then you can go. It's basically very easy.
It's very easy. Just take 20 years. Can you both maybe talk about these big adventures? I know many of them can be quite dangerous. You're now mentioning cave diving, Robert. Can you talk a little bit about the more dangerous side of this adventure seeking, thrill seeking?
Some of the things Nico and I do are kind of dangerous, yes. Even on our first assignment, I got hurt badly. I ripped all my ligaments on my foot, but after the assignment, exactly 1 minute after the assignment.
Oh, this sounds horrific.
Yeah, because we've done something very dangerous. We were extracting ghost nets from the Baltic Sea, and quite big ones, hundreds of kilos, which is like life-threatening.
Can you explain what ghost nets are?
These are basically nets. They are dumped by fishermen, or they got ripped off a place, or they got stuck on a rock or on a wreck. And these ghost nets are life-threatening to like seals, seabirds, turtles, sharks, basically every single marine life. There's no rule or there's no law to get these ghost nets from the sea ground for like governments or fishermen. But sometimes private people do that, or NGOs. And Nico and me, on our first assignment together, Nico was the cameraman, I was the diver who is extracting the ghost nets. Everything went well, nobody got hurt, and on the last seconds I'm jumping off the boat and I rip all my ligaments, and this cost me like 6 months of recovery, and it was horrible. But this is what usually happens because I'm a very good planner in terms of safety on our expeditions. We discuss everything up front. We have a very good safety protocol because I'm not just a marine biologist, I became a scientific diver as well. And this is like, it gets stuck in your brain that it's all about safety, because if you don't think about safety, you basically die when you are a diver, or even a scientific diver. And if you panic, you die as well. So there's loads of things to think about. Sometimes Nico and me, we are accompanying like wildlife protection units in the jungle, or ex-Navy SEALs, ex-Marines, or people who are hunting poachers. Or Nico and me, we have been in very sketchy situations on the ocean. We have been in a very sketchy situation underwater just lately in December in Indonesia. We got sucked down by a down current, which was kind of scary. And you can easily die if you panic in these kind of situations. And sometimes we do as well undercover work where Nico is not feeling very comfortable. I'm okay with it after 15 years of doing that, but...
What do you mean by undercover work in this sense?
For example, you pretend to be a tourist, but you are filming with undercover cameras.
Yeah, that is scary.
Yeah, in wildlife crime situations where people are exploiting animals on wildlife markets, or dolphins in hidden hotel pools to swim with, or elephant riding, or illegal shark fishing, or whatever. And you always have this feeling, once your cover falls, you're exposed to very dangerous people. And this puts a lot of pressure on yourself. And Nico and me, we have done some very, very sketchy things, but I can live through it, and I can deal with it because Nico is on my side, and we are living through it as a team.
But at the same time, you want to expose these people, of course, so there's a good reason to do it. So, Nico, for you, what would you say is your most daring, more recent adventure? Or, in this case, I wouldn't call it an adventure, it just sounds dangerous to me, but...
Yeah, I mean, one thing that for me is always a bit critical is the undercover work where I don't feel comfortable with. This is really something where I struggle. And in terms of safety, Robert, I have to really give it to him. He's one of the most organized people when it comes to safety measurements. One story was in Costa Rica. We were doing a dive from a really bad conditioned boat, which is an NGO trying to protect the marine parks, and luckily we brought our own dive gear because it was really in bad conditions, and Robert probably would not have dived with that gear. And we were missing oxygen, just in case of safety, something happens, and it was really important for Robert to get some oxygen.
Because you have to explain, after an accident during diving, oxygen saves basically your life. If you don't have oxygen, you may die. So this is for me very important, that in case of, you have it on the boat and it's ready to go. And we didn't have oxygen.
Yeah. So we made a deal with another boat we saw that had oxygen, and in the middle of the ocean we swapped a box of beer for renting a box of oxygen.
It's called being flexible. It's called being flexible and work with the things you have. Finding ways, exactly.
But that was really important for Robert.
Your guys' job sounds so dangerous to me. I mean, as a documentary photographer, I've been in a lot of dangerous situations, but most of them happened because you don't know how human beings would interact. Like
100%
I'm in
agreed.
situations like war and these kind of places where
Yeah.
you're never sure what's going to happen. But crazy enough, the natural world scares me most. But that's because it's not my world as much as it is yours. But it seems so... To me, it seems like danger is everywhere.
No, for me, it's exactly the opposite. Nature never scares me, ever. No animal scares me, just human behavior scares me. Wildlife, poachers, illegal shark fishers, you know? This is what scares me the most, because
Yes.
because people can lie, people can pretend. Animals don't do that. Nature doesn't do that.
Very true. No.
Nature is always honest.
I totally agree. But the thing that would scare me is the things you need to organize, having oxygen, being on the water. But you know, like there's so much that could
Yeah.
go wrong that
100%.
Me walking just on the planet, breathing my own air, you know, like there's less of a risk. You guys need to be so well prepared to stay alive.
That's why I feel safe when working with Robert, because he's in charge of that. So
I'm in charge of safety. I always have a plan B or plan C or a second car, a second phone, a second pair of oxygen bottles.
Wow.
I always prepare very well. And all these amazing special forces, combat first responder doctors, they always say, Robert, you're right. Don't listen to your team. Do exactly what you do. So I'm listening to them.
That's good. Yeah, it sounds very safe the way you.
I try. Because we need to bring back the recordings. It doesn't. We can't change people's perception. We can't change the world. We can't be the voice of the voiceless animals if we don't bring back the recordings alive. You know, this is the most important job.
With that in mind, and I think both of you have this. You are yin and yang, but I think you both have that feeling that you need to get the shot.
And Nico always gets the shot.
Yeah, I've seen that. I mean, the work you guys produce is out of this world. Well, it really literally kind of is. So let's move to what nature does to people. We kind of mentioned it earlier as well. I always feel more connected to myself, but also to the people around me after I've spent some time in nature. So can you maybe describe when you have felt most free or most connected to the natural world?
I feel most free diving. This is my safe place, I feel like, and I could literally spend hours underwater just watching a random fish whatsoever do its thing, or like that really calms me down. And that's underwater is where I feel free. And then I have those moments, those special dives where you encounter something big. Like I had a special dive in Egypt where we had 2 silky sharks and 3 longimanus, and they were very curious, and they were circling around us for like half an hour, and they were getting closer and closer. And this was like one of those dives where you're like, wow, you're in nature. This is the moment. And then other dives in a school of barracudas just last week. Just you, yourself, the camera, of course, a buddy. And these are the moments where I feel most free, I think.
It sounds so magical.
I need to add something so non-divers understand that. Many times and many dives, we come out with nothing. So we are always taking our cameras, and there's like 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 dives out of 100 where you really get the shot. But that means 95 dives are basically a waste of time, and you don't get the shot, and it's bad visibility, and it's current. The animals don't do what they are supposed to do in front of our camera. And Nico and me, we are a very respectful cameraman. We never lure any animals, we never feed them, we never put them in difficult situations, we never approach the animals, we let the animals do their things. So that means you need to work harder, longer, faster to really get the shot, the natural shot. And just for your understanding, you go to the Serengeti to film lions or whatever, you do 10 game drives, 9 out of 10 you get the lions. But in terms of diving, sometimes it means you do 100 dives and just one single dive is successful. So it's a lot of hard work underwater, and it's so much more technical stuff involved in terms of equipment. So it's a very, very hard job, not very satisfying, lots of problems. But once you get the shot, once you have this special dive, it's all worth it.
I love to to hear you're not disturbing the animals in any way. I mean, it's better for the animals, but it's also better for the footage you get. I mean, you get the real deal instead of some disturbed version.
We see exactly if the animal is fat or disturbed or the shot is in a zoo or an aquarium. You see it immediately if you're a professional, and you see immediately if the cameraman respects the animal and respects the behavior or alters the behavior. It's very easy to spot once you become a wildlife specialist or once you watched basically every single documentary on the planet.
Then you can tell as well. So away from shooting underwater, what has been the most majestic land animals or habitats that you've seen?
Okay, I had one situation in Costa Rica where we saw the fer de lance.
Fer de lance, yeah, very poisonous snake. Most poisonous snake in South and Middle Central America. 800 people get bitten every single year. Many die.
And we went at night into the jungle, and it was just laying on the track. And as we walked, but it was majestic. The way she looked at us and checked us out. It was because I had this adrenaline as well. Seeing it that close, a wild animal like this, and I didn't get that same feeling when we filmed the tapir, for example, which is maybe also not a majestic animal, but it was, for me, it was a very special encounter.
It was special, and the ability of the snake to kill a human being, and one of our friends almost got killed by the snake. He almost lost his life. And we did a film on that. And so meeting the snake we were always talking about and we were always fearing to step on was actually quite cool, and realizing it's not going to kill us, it's just laying there and looking amazing and we could film it very easily was a cool moment, I agree.
Yeah, but the whole situation was amazing.
Everyone said, come on Robert, you with your safety things, we can roam around in the jungle, nothing's going to happen. After the snake, the real snake, everyone was behind me, like little ducklings. We were walking around through the jungle, not losing contact of each other. So,
oh goodness, I can see the picture in my mind. So with the job, you end up in some of the most vulnerable places when it comes to climate change. How does it feel for you to see the effects of climate change literally firsthand? I can imagine you've seen it change as well in the last 20 years, maybe even.
Yeah, big time. And it's always devastating. I tell you that. And sometimes I have the feeling Nico is using his camera as like a shield. And he looks through his lens. I don't know if that's true, but it sometimes feels like Nico is not as much affected as I am. Because he is really in the job. I don't know if that's true, Nico. You have to say it for yourself. But it feels to me that you are in your job. You're documenting. You're doing your best. You're creating these amazing shots. You're using the drone, and I have to stand there and I have to explain my feelings. And sometimes it really breaks my heart. And often in these situations I start to cry because this feeling is so overwhelming. We documented like a 500-year-old tree. We filmed it in the most amazing sunrise, and it's just an amazing feeling to meet a tree like this in the jungle which my community protects. And 100 meters further there's a tree, a 500-year-old tree being cut down, laying in front of us, and it just takes like 5 minutes. And it took him, the tree, 500 years to grow. And walking on this tree is like you're overwhelmed with these feelings, because it's not just a tree, it's all these animals living on there. It's the fungi, it's the plants, it's the whole...
Yeah, it's a whole ecosystem on its own, a tree. Yeah. Yeah,
I really struggle in these situations. I don't know if Nico hardly ever cries. I don't know.
I do. I just hide behind the camera. Huh? It was that moment. I mean, in the jungle of Peru for almost 2 weeks, and seeing all of these animals and these big trees, they really impressed me. I'm not big into trees and stuff, but learning so much about them and how important it is. And then on the way back, we drive through this clear cut and we stop, take some drone shots, and that was really hard to believe, because you keep thinking, how stupid are we? Like how like we have this big CO2 reserve that we just filmed and tried to protect. And it's one of the best things that we can do to the planet to keep them. But no, we just cut them down. And these are the things where it's frustrating.
You exactly said the right words. It's frustrating. But we are documenting it. And then we're bringing back these images. And the video we did on exactly that kind of situation led to my community bought more than 1 million square meters of this particular rainforest. And it's growing. The protected, the saved area is growing because Nico and me were there. And we made these images and we made this film. And this organization we're working with, Wilderness International, is protecting more and more rainforest, and they get more and more donations because Nico and me were doing this films and images.
It's so important to tell these stories.
You know it for yourself. If you share the story, people know, and then they can make their own decisions.
And you give people a chance to somehow help. That's one way as well. But also by telling the story, you are holding the people who are doing this accountable in some way. It can't be unseen anymore. So are there any new conservation projects lined up, either together or separately?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm basically
okay.
my whole office is filled up with equipment. We are starting a new thing tomorrow. Yeah.
What is it on?
This is a cleanup, basically. It's a river in Germany, and there's a group that already is starting to free dive it and clean it, and it's quite interesting because the visibility is really bad, the conditions are hard, and with the project tomorrow we are helping them, but also bring attention to what even happens in the German rivers, what you can find in terms of trash, like from bikes till fridges, like what people throw out, and bring awareness to that.
So on a shoot like that tomorrow, you just said your whole office is full of equipment. What would you use on a shoot like this? What do you bring?
So for this shoot, I will have to bring 2 cameras, one for topside and one for underwater. 2 times it's the R5C. One will need a housing for it. There will be some lights on there, and then some microphones, and some tripods, some backup microphones, some batteries, memory cards, and actually it's not so bad. It's really not so bad.
It's okay. Sometimes the next expedition afterwards, this is gonna be absolutely killer. We're gonna take hundreds of kilos of equipment because we are for weeks on a very remote place, and we shoot underwater, we shoot in the air, we're doing overnighters in the woods. It's diving, it's cold water diving. Yesterday we counted how many drones we're taking. It's just 10. So it's absolutely crazy. Lots of lenses, lots of cameras, because we want to get the best out of it. And it's our largest expedition this year. But for tomorrow, Nico, you're right, we are kind of under-equipped. What's happening? This one car is already enough.
Are you really bringing enough?
I'm not sure. And Nico didn't mention the action cameras and drones and I don't know, safety equipment.
Nico, what's going on?
I missed that. I know, actually, yeah. Now that you mention it, there's a few more tiny pieces, but in general, it's not so crazy. Yeah.
Is that an on-land shoot, the one you're doing? Is that why the kit differs?
It totally depends. Sometimes on land, we're just filming with our cell phone, if it's undercover work, or you have like a hidden camera on various spots. So sometimes I'm even taking less than 1 kilo. And sometimes, if we are for weeks in the jungle or whatever, it's 300 kilos. It totally depends on the location. If it's warm or cold, cold usually requires more kilos. It totally depends on what we are doing, how deep we are going, how far we are going, how long we are going, and usually it's a big mess of equipment.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It's really, when you're talking about this, I can kind of literally, I'm serious, feel my heart beat faster, because I do immense traveling for my work. And my main fear is always, and it has never happened because it is my main fear is always going to a remote place, which I do very often, forgetting one cable or one battery. And it never happens. I have checklist. And my friends and family never understand that that's my worst fear. But I just can't imagine arriving in the middle of nowhere in South Sudan, opening my bag, realizing one essential cable is missing.
Absolutely. Even a 10-cent piece can literally ruin your whole expedition. If you are the underwater cameraman and you forgot your O-ring, which seals the housing, which is like 10 cents, you're done.
But it's
That's it.
frustrating. So you just mentioned the on-land work as well. Your upcoming, not the one from tomorrow, the river story, but the next expedition. What kind of on-land things do you do, and what is the specific equipment you bring then?
Next shoot for me is it's basically bears, wolves. It's woods, it's very remote, it's trekking, it's overnight in the woods, it's camera traps. Nico and me, we have to bring every single skill and every single piece of equipment we have. So it's R6 II, it's R5, it's R5C, it's R3, it's all the lenses, the Holy Trinity. I'm bringing the 100-300, I'm bringing the 400, 100-500, 70-200, we bring basically everything. And we need basically everything because the situations we're filming, they're completely different every single day. You need to be prepared and you need to be ready with all the cameras, all the time.
But there, I'm really, really thankful now to have a camera like the R5C that allows you to get smaller and more compact, that can do pretty much everything you need to have. So this is really a big help if you don't need to bring two. Like for me, I'm bringing two R5C, but I don't have to bring an R5 and a C70 or another R5 for underwater. So having everything in one camera really saves you a lot of space and stress as well.
And actually the RF system or the Rs, the cameras, were a big game changer for me because usually my backpack, I halved the kgs, which is an amazing step. I'm so glad Canon did that actually. And my equipment got smaller and smaller and smaller and lighter, which is a very big step up because now I can focus on comfort as well. Because I usually left the pillow, for example, for an overnighter in the jungle behind. Now I can take it because I have space and I'm able to carry it because I'm not having these heavy backpacks anymore, which is cool.
The question now that you asked before about like what are the situations that I fear most about and stuff, it's the airports. Traveling. Now that I think about it, I'm always sweating and I'm like, oh my God, my bag is so heavy. Please, like,
please be nice.
Yeah,
totally agree. What I hate most in airports, I mean, usually they have to go through the bag because they can't see through the lenses and they take the lenses apart, take all the lens caps off and so on. It's frustrating. So can you maybe explain how these lenses, let's say the 24-50 for instance, or the 100-300, I've never used that lens, but I know it's amazing.
It's a very, very light lens in terms of for this focal length and especially with the combination of the R3. The R3 always feels to me like the battery pack is missing or something is missing. Why is this camera so light? It's always like, it's super weird. It doesn't feel like a tank, but it performs like a tank, you know?
It performs like a tank, it really does.
I love this camera. I'm very much in love with the R3, yeah.
So, Nico, you used the 24-50, am I right?
Yeah, I just tested it. I asked Canon to give it a try for underwater. And I've just been using it on the last shoot. It might sound weird. It's a kit lens. It's not the fastest lens, but it gives me a great opportunity to use wet lenses underwater.
Yet now it becomes very technically.
I'm trying to think how I can make this not sound boring and interesting, but in short, in this combination, I can use basically a wide-angle conversion lens, which is designed for underwater, in combination with the 24-50, and it gives me amazing image quality. It's versatile, and it is a very affordable, cheap lens, but I get some really, really good results with this. It sounds crazy, but with this lens, I have some nice 8K raw shots with the R5C where you're like, wow. Yeah.
And it's not so crazy if you think about it, because water itself is a totally different environment than air. And usually what we do as an underwater cameraman, we bring housings with air-filled dome ports. So you're still working with air and glass. But what Nico is using is a very cheap lens, but then the glass in front of the lens we put on our housings, it's made for the environment. So this is the game changer. So this is what makes this lens absolutely perfect for underwater in combination with a port made for underwater shooting.
This is becoming technical, but we're learning.
On top, I actually tried it yesterday the first time now. With the 24 to 50, I can change wet lenses underwater. So I can change from macro to wide angle.
Which is amazing. You usually can't do that. I always wish I could, because you're stuck with your one lens. If it's a 15mm or 24mm, you're stuck with this lens. You can't change. But Nico has an advantage now. I need this lens as well.
I love how both of you are so super technical, but I looked at your CVs on the Ambassador website, and I think both of you have been with Canon for a very long time, probably resulting in you getting to know the camera like inside and out.
I just spoke about this, when was it? The day before yesterday. I had a talk in Munich, and it was about the R5C and why I personally think, you always say it's not about the camera, it's about the person behind the camera. And yes, it's true in a way, but I only agree to a certain amount, because the camera nowadays can help you in so many ways. And the next part is, if you use that, this makes you have shots more in focus, get the exposure perfect, knowing when to use false color, knowing how to read a waveform monitor properly, knowing how to expose with the camera you're using, because you check your footage afterwards and you learn it, knowing how to shoot underwater, because the red channel is noisy as hell when you shoot raw, because underwater you lose the red color in the first 10 meters. If you don't shoot raw, the camera is amazing in denoising it accordingly. And I feel I'm very technical about this. I want to have a very nice clean image in focus, and then going into the menu, checking the autofocus system, the sensitivity, and knowing when to use it, using face only AF and all of that. This is, I think, where I'm good at. And this is where I like to teach people as well how to use it to become more comfortable using the cameras. And I remember when Canon introduced the dual pixel autofocus system, all the professionals were like, autofocus, this is for amateurs and all of that. It is weird, because whenever I shoot with several cameramen for festivals or anything, and they use manual focus, most of the time, I don't want to brag, but I think my footage is always in focus. And I use the focus the right way. I don't just turn it on. I lock it. I change the sensitivity accordingly and all of that. And I just use it as a tool, and don't tell the camera, do everything yourself. I just use it the way it's intended to, in my opinion.
Wow, this is very inspirational, actually.
And he is an editor himself, so he knows what pain the editors are going through if they are presented with like not so as good footage, So that's why he always goes the extra mile. So he knows the editor has an easier job and the correct footage.
I really love how you two are hyping each other up. I'm just smiling behind my microphone here, literally. Can you maybe explain what makes your working relationship so strong? This is just incredible. What's the trick?
For me, the trick is I call Nico my golden boy, because I worked with many different cameramans on professional or semi-professional shoots all over the world, from basically every single continent. And I never met a guy who is able to fly drones, to shoot on land, to shoot underwater, to dive on a professional skill level, to be a very good team member, to never moan about anything, to live in a jungle without food, to never be scared in scary situations, and to be a good friend as well. I just love spending time with this guy, and I just love having all these amazing adventures and changing people's perceptions with our movies.
And Nico, for you, this working relationship, why is it so strong?
Be honest, as always.
No, no pressure. I think it's also the fact I really like to work with Robert is because of the projects we do, and I like to, to see what impact they have. So this is the working part that is very strong, that I enjoy, and also the fact that we can, learn from each other different parts where I tell Robert. I remember with the R5 how we went through the menu together, and deep into the menu I told him, you can do this and this and this, and then I learned from Robert from marine life parts, everything about the environment, up to even clothing.
And we never fight.
Really?
Because you easily get into fights with human interactions if you are stressed out, if there was no sleep for the last 3 days or weeks, if you are hungry, if you are painful somewhere in the jungle where it's uncomfortable. But we never fight. We live through these situations together, and as a team it makes us stronger. And it's not just Nico and me, we have a couple of more people sometimes working with us, and it's the same with them. It's a very tiny core team, and there's no one coming in or getting out. It's this team I created over the last 20 years. I really like to work with, and it's just amazing people. Just amazing people.
And Nico, you just described a few of the things that Robert has taught you. Robert, what has Nico taught you?
Seriously, I learned so many things about cameras from Nico, especially about, there's easy things on camera. There's a couple of buttons, every single camera is the same thing. But sometimes there's big changes in the deeper menus, and this is something for Nico. Because I'm not the guy reading the instruction things, I just take a camera in my hand, I use it, and it goes very well usually. But sometimes I'm not using the camera to its full potential. And then Nico gets in. And he says, look, Robert, there's this tiny thing you can change. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. How did you... Oh, wow. So, and whenever a new camera is coming out, we're usually doing the reviews on it as well. And I learned from Nico within 5 minutes what this camera is able to. And it's just amazing. And Nico is always up to date. As soon as there's an update on the market, 1 second later, he has it on his camera. And I have 2 seconds later, it's on my camera.
I need to be more like Nico. I think a lot of the photographers and filmmakers who are listening, who are now thinking, I need to be more like Nico. I really think so.
What's really impressive about Robert is, which fascinates me, the way he's like a sponge as well. He can...
this is something you hate about me, because you are not able to do that.
No, I'm not able to do this.
See, you do fight. I'm happy to hear this.
It is really... Robert has a few superpowers. One of them is he can suck up informations like a sponge. He read a few books about snakes, and then he remembers all of that. I have a hard time reading one book 5 times and remembering just half of it. It comes as well when I tell him stuff about cameras. It's very simple. I also do sometimes workshops and teach people how to use cameras, and it sometimes takes a few times to explaining the same thing, and with Robert it's very easy actually, and that's something I'm jealous about, the way he can have those informations. And at the beginning when we met, I really the first time we spoke, I was like, he knows everything, blah 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 blah, and then I realized he really does know so many things and remembers them. That's one of the superhero powers that he has.
Yeah. So usually I would ask at the end of the podcast, so what's next? But with you, both, we've kind of heard already throughout the episode what's next. I even know what you're going to do tomorrow. So I would rather ask you, what is your dream for the future in working together on these beautiful projects you do?
It's a very hard question, because it's an emotional question. Because what Nico said earlier is he wants to go to all these amazing places, and he wants to see basically every place. And I just turned 40 this year, and this is actually the first year I realize I'm not able to anymore. I can't get to all these amazing places because I'm too old. I just maybe have 40 years left, and there's like hundreds of thousands of all these amazing places, and I'm not going to be able to see them all. I'm not going to be able to document them all. I'm not going to be able to save them all. And this is a very weird feeling you get when you turn 40. So Nico has a couple of years left, which is good. So for me I have like a list of things I want to do, of things I want to change, of animals I want to see and preserve, and projects I'm trying to do. And my biggest dream is that we stay healthy and do these amazing things together as long and as much as we can. This is my dream for the future.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Nico?
Yes, I said I would love to see them, all these places, but I think that's clear that it's not possible and also doesn't make sense in many ways. I agree with what just Robert said. That would be great. And one project that I could see, because right now we're producing a lot on YouTube, and let's see, Robert has done all of that already, but I could see in the future to maybe cut together a proper 90-minute documentary film about all of that coming together and bring it to the movies, like into the cinema or something like that, something like that.
Because I know exactly why. Because Nico, he really is an artist. He's a real cameraman. You know, I'm kind of a documentary guy, but Nico is an artist. He loves the camera, he loves his lens flares, he loves his 8K, he loves the log things and everything. He really loves camera artwork. So he's an artist producing films for the cinema. I'm just pressing the button, and sometimes I'm forcing him to use the cell phone or undercover cameras, and he hates it because it's not producing the perfect image. So he always talks about, we need to do something for the cinema. And I'm always like, one day we're gonna do it. Blue Planet 4, Nico. So
okay, if this is gonna happen, I'm gonna watch. I'm definitely going to see this movie, but I'm sure everyone who listened today will do the same, because you guys just sound amazing when you're talking about nature, about your job, about each other. So yeah, if the movie comes to the cinema, we're all gonna go. Be sure of that. I really want to thank you both for joining me on this episode and for sharing so much with all of us. And yeah, thanks so much for your time. And we're looking forward to all the beautiful things you're going to be making in the future.
Thank you very much, Ilvy. It was a lot of fun to talk in this round. I really enjoyed it. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. It was really fun. Thanks.
You've been listening to Shutter Stories, a Canon podcast. Thank you to my guests, Robert and Nico, and thanks to you for listening. Look out for the new short-form series we've launched, Shutter Stories Moments, in this podcast feed. It's an opportunity to listen to advice, guidance and anecdotes from previous guests, and a way to hear some exclusive new content too. Come back next month for another episode, and in the meantime, don't be a stranger. There are loads of brilliant ways to stay in contact with us in the podcast description. We also love to hear your feedback, so rate it 5 stars on the platform you listen on and spread the word with all your favorite photographers and content creators. See you next time.
Shutter Stories, a Canon podcast.